when did telling the truth become an act of courage?
Mm.
Because that's the root of this, is that we're biting our lips. We're so afraid of rocking the boat. People get to the top of that mountain. The first thing they do is like, wow. They look around. They're relieved. They're amazed. They're like, they did it. And then they look, and what was hiding behind that mountain was another mountain.
Meet Silvio. I'm sorry, he says, halfway through the one-on-one conversation with his direct report. Sorry for bringing this up. Sorry for expecting more. Sorry for pushing. His direct report nods, says all the right things, and the meeting ends as these meetings always end. Politely, vaguely, and with nothing likely to change. An hour later, Silvio is still thinking about it. Why was I apologizing? Silvio is director of business development for a finance company. He's smart. He's thoughtful. He works well with people. But when it comes to the moments that define leadership, having the hard conversations, giving direct feedback, addressing missed follow-ups, he hesitates. He softens. He wraps the truth in compliments while hoping his message still lands. And it rarely does. His team keeps repeating poor behaviors, and Silvio keeps avoiding hard conversations. And every time he delays, it chips away at his confidence. Silvio wants to be respected. He wants to lead with conviction. He wants to stop chasing approval and say what needs to be said. The problem is, he notices this pattern of behavior, but he can't seem to break free from it. Today, I'm speaking with Ryan Berman, founder of Courageous, keynote speaker, and author of Return on Courage. For over 25 years, Ryan has helped leaders and teams to move beyond fear, challenge stale thinking, and build the kind of courage that leads to hard conversations, decisive action, and lasting change. He has brought that work to organizations like Google, Procter & Gamble, Kellogg's, Snapchat, and many more. And I look forward to hearing how Ryan would help someone like Silvio to stop hiding behind being nice and polite, and to build up courage that helps him to lead clearly, honestly, and without apology. My name is Jay Abbasi, and welcome to Unstuck. Real people, real stories, real solutions. While the details are changed to protect anonymity, what you just heard is based on a true story of challenges that come up in the real world. And we discuss how to navigate these environments with practical tips to help you get unstuck and build a more fulfilling, impactful, and balanced life and career. Ryan, I was learning a lot about you, and I saw that you used to write jingles for Subway. And I was like, I got to ask him about this. Yeah, I got to ask how writing jingles for Subway to doing the great work you do in Courage Now, how did that happen?
I mean, it all starts with a pen, right? It all starts with curiosity and a pen. And you got to go all the way. I mean, like, this is kind of one of those things you got to go back to my childhood. And again, we're not doing the whole eye roll therapy thing here, but like, I was basically raised by two babysitters, a soccer ball and a television. Like, I would come home from school and there was no one around for the first 4 or 5 hours. I'd make myself a snack and I'd go sit in front of a TV, and I loved all of it. And back then there was like 5 channels. So commercials, you couldn't zip through them. They were as much the entertainment as anything else. You know, Mikey Likes It, Life Cereal. Like, yeah, I remember those moments. And so when you fast forward to 16, 17-year-old version of me, and I learned that you could study television, radio for a living, I'm like, I am an expert in television. I've been studying television my whole life. And so I went to television radio school, came out with a portfolio, really learned storytelling in a short form, like a 3-second story, a 30-second story, and ended up starting my career in New York City, working for some crazy madmen in the advertising business back when advertising really mattered. And back then, data looked differently. Data looked like I'm waiting outside my creative director's office and I'm terrified to go in there, but I'm going to learn fast if I'm going to get the laugh or get laughed out of the room. And so when you have that level of fear and you're playing at that sort of basically the all-star game of advertising in a subjective world, you want to be the absolute best you can. And here I get this opportunity to write jingles for Subway. And the way I even looked at it, this was my first big shot. I even looked at the genres. So like, I'm like, you know what? This one's going to be gospel and it's going to
Mm.
be about the bread. It's rising. Oh yeah. All different types. And imagine, not the best singer in the world, by the way, but like I'm going in there talking about genres and talking about the importance of that. And like, they looked at me like I had 10 heads the right way when I first did it. And then, gave me confidence to keep going in that space and keep rolling. And then what became radio jingles eventually turned into high concept for Subway, and Subway Eat Fresh was a big campaign that I got to work on, and it gave me confidence to move out west and start my own creative agency. And that gave me confidence to start with the little duct tape job of a 4-person company out of a house. And we eventually grew it to 90 people, and the roles changed. Then it's like, oh, how do I be a leader? How do you grow a team of 90 people? And oh my gosh, I am in the way here. Like I need to hire someone to do this because I'm the stopgap. It's me. I'm the problem. And that's the irony, is curiosity kind of like you just sort of follow the trail, and 1 second you're making fun and entertainment, and then you move to the next big opportunity, and then you get bigger, and then you got to, I'm like, how do I be a leader? I don't know how to do that. Well, you do it just by doing it. You start to play around with and have the awareness on yourself. And next
Yeah.
thing you know, here you are, right?
Well, it's interesting because you have on your website, there's a blog post I saw of yours where you refer to some of the steps of like, if I hadn't done this, I wouldn't have gotten here, and so on. And I think it's something we can access in reflection. But when we're in the middle of it, we're not able to think through that, right? Because in the middle of it,
Yeah.
it's like, do I take this risk or do I don't? Do I take this chance or do I not? And from what I learned about you, Ryan, like you were someone, and you still are, you're someone who takes risks.
Yeah, I think when you have a company called Courageous, I think you're forced to take risks now. But to your point, like I don't think I was like everybody else on the early days. Like I couldn't, and again, I think it's a great setup to the conversation we're gonna have on the back half. Like, what's the advice and feedback you would give, right? Because it starts with I was making decisions, but I don't know why I was making them, other than I know in my heart it was the right move to make. And I probably didn't have enough time, clarity, or awareness to deconstruct what was actually happening, other than this is a violation of myself if I stay down this path. And you don't say it that way, but it was true. I'm like, well, I could like live my life and be a client service, client management guy, which is how I started. And I felt I felt just a little like I was going through the motions and just a little uninspired. And I could feel a little bit of frustration becoming like middle frustration. It wasn't big frustration, but it was middle frustration. And then you get to the point where like, well, wait a minute. I remember being at a road show, I was running with another person, the Subway business for our ad agency. And I was at a road show in Arizona when the creative directors came to me and said, hey, we heard you're in night school for writing. Do you want to take a cut at this brief? That was the jingles. And I was a deer in headlights. And my boss is like, yes, he wants to take a cut at this. And they're like, hey, it was Friday. He's like, show us what you got on Monday. So I don't know what their bar was for me, but I worked the whole weekend, worked the plane ride, and, realized in my heart, like, I remember when I finally went, I had to go through with the experiment, but when success was there and they're like, let's now do it again. And then they're like, we want you to actually be a creative. Then I was like, oh shit, like now I am in the arena right? It's gladiator time. Like, is this good or is this bad? Do I really want this life? It's going to be a lot more work, but I think I have to go for it. I think I want the ball. I want the rock. I want to shoot my shot. And so it wasn't until I was writing Return on Courage, this is 15 years later, that you get this moment to look back at decisions that you made. And the blog post you're referring to, it's all about the fear and the pain of people saying to themselves, when am I going to get my big break? And I'm here to tell you the cavalry is not coming. It's all of the little breaks, and it's taking that little break, and that leads to the next little break, and then that leads to the next little break, and it's staying curious and experimenting and being at peace with. You might not be awesome at it all, but you can pivot and iterate and learn and move forward. Like, how do you write a book? I don't know how to do that until you do it. How do you give a keynote? I don't know how to do that until you do it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's sort of been the story of my life. But the first half, it was more unconscious. Now I at least understand why I'm making the decisions I'm making. And, the older you get reflective and intentional on how this happened.
Yeah. Well, I thought of my mother as you were explaining the, you know, when am I going to catch my big break? Because my mother often uses language like, you're going to make it. Right. Like since I was a kid, she says to me, I always see in you, you're going to make it. And I used to like that and be inspired by that. Now I actually don't like that language at all. And I tell her that with love. Of course, I know she means well. Because what it suggests is that there's one moment of I made it. There's one big break. And life is not like that. And if you're waiting for that, you're going to be waiting forever. You're always going to be in a state of discouragement and you're always going to feel behind in everything in your life.
I mean, you're talking about friendly fire from mom, right? I mean, totally friendly fire from
Of
mom.
course. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and, and let's also just call it what it is. If you have kids, you're going to mess them up. There will be friendly fire. It doesn't matter what you say; they're going to hear something else. Now,
Yeah.
sometimes you say stuff, and it's just fascinating what sticks and what stands, right? And I think about my parents, and I have my own version of friendly fire too that comes from them. What
Yeah.
I love is that your mom has what great friendly fire to have. Like, she has total belief in you, and right. It sometimes it's tough to like just enjoy where you're at and enjoy this moment. But what she's saying is, wow, the ceiling on you and what belief she has in you is amazing.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. It's coming from the best place. And so what I have to do is I acknowledge it and I say thank you, ma, and all that. And I'm telling myself a different story than what she told me because right, if I listen to that story, then I'm always looking for the big break, right? And I know
Totally.
that's not how it works. And the other thing you said, I thought of I really loved how you said it, which you said I'd be in violation of myself if I didn't do this. That's a really powerful way of putting it. I was thinking about how when I was in corporate, I was in a meeting once and the VP asked of all the managers who would like to volunteer to do this one thing. And in the moment I raised my hand. I just said, "I'll do it." I had no idea what it was. I didn't know like
Totally.
exactly what it would take. I didn't know if I was ready for it. When you said that, in reflection now, I realized that's what motivated me was I'd be in violation of myself if I don't raise my hand and volunteer for this.
Yeah. That's the decision that we all make every day, whether we take an action or we don't, right? Like, you're either in violation of who you are or you're living your truth. And, I think values have a very interesting place in this world. Like, one of the things I'd love to create if I had all the time in the world is word stock market. Cause there's certain words that, like, they don't mean anything anymore. They used to have meaning, like the word leadership. I think, no, 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 duh, we need leadership. But leadership for some people has turned into cheerleadership.
Yeah.
And it's like we're rah-rahing to our staff. It's like they don't need that. They need the truth. But people think leadership is that. Or worse, leadership is now being used to describe a collection of people. Well, leadership needs to decide that versus what leadership actually is. And so I'm buying low, not on the need for leadership, on the word, because it's been so watered down. I like the word believership. I think the sole goal of leadership is believership, and the believership is not one person. It might be a series of people on that leadership team, and you either make believers or fake believers. Okay, now hopefully I've short circuited you. I'm buying low on a word that doesn't exist, word stock market, and I want to give it meaning and make it more potent. Oh, hey, we're part of the believership. Our job is to make believers out of our team. How do we go about doing that? Same thing on the word values. I think the word values has now become, it's not landing, it's not sticking with people. We know that they're supposed to be important. And, one of the ways I try to go about this, like, well, how valuable are your values? At a corporate level, is it just wall art, or it's collecting dust in some employee manual? Or at the leadership level, or at the human level, like less than 1% of us can rattle off our personal core values. Like, every decision I make is through the lens of my four core values. And I rarely waver from them. Optimism is my number one core value. Creativity is two, courage is three, and excellence is four. And it's not that I don't value other stuff, but I'm like, it's crazy that I would actually look, with everything going on in the world right now, optimism remains, right? Like that's, I'm going to choose to show up and be part of the solution. I've made a choice that the world is not spinning me, but I'm going to spin my little part of the world. And then creativity, what I continue to see, probably because I came from the Mad Men world, like I had early mentors that were like, you're not in advertising, you're in creative business. And I'm like,
Mhm.
wow, that's so interesting. I continue to walk into C suites and see a CFO, a COO, a chief legal officer, a chief procurement officer, and chief tech officer. Everyone's playing on one side of the brain, and they're missing that there's no behavior change without feeling.
Right.
No feel, no deal. Like, how can we be a little bit more playful, a little bit more creative? It's still not creative for the sake of creative. It's creative business. And I've never seen myself as a business guy or a creative. I'm a creative business guy. It's like, it's bringing both sides of the brain, being full brain to life, and unlocking that inside of a leadership team or a business. So that's my second. Three is courage. And like, I think why you and I get along, why your hand went up, is that we share the last two. It's like, you know what? I want to stretch. And excellence. Like, I live on the West Coast, probably 3 miles from the beach, and like, I'm wired, like, that's not where I want to go. I don't want to just be lazy and sit on a beach. I want to work. I want to do something while I'm here in my short time on the planet. And so that's why we do all the things we do, right? It's like we keep stretching and want to push. And, to your mom's point, are we chasing something? Am I not good enough here? But like, I value excellence. I want to make a dent. And I understand that about myself.
Yeah.
So, are you in
Yeah.
violation of that human? You probably, whether that human is declared or undeclared, comes back to values, and they should be more potent than they are. They just sort of get washed over now.
Yeah. And then I'm glad you brought up the fear of, what people are experiencing, today's society. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of fear, there's a lot of uncertainty, and you talk about fighting fear. And I was really curious to get your take on this, because with the amount of fear and the amount of anxiety and worry and uncertainty that people are feeling, how are you encouraging people to fight that fear without it feeling inhuman, right? Because I know you care about people. So like, how do you reconcile that? Like, there is fear, and we
Yeah,
have to learn how to work through it.
yeah, yeah. So remember, we'll run this through that first filter of optimism. So like, recognize that everything I'm about to share is through the lens of helping you, not the world, not people at the company next door, not even your neighbor. Like, just put this through the lens of you right now. So yes, we say we're corporate fear fighters. Like, what is the largest fear that's holding you back? Do you feel stuck? Do you feel scared? Do you feel stale? Do you feel safe? And usually there's a fear that's holding you back. The irony of being on a podcast about being unstuck, right? And so there is no change without courage, and there's no courage without fear. But what most of us do is we bury the fear, we suppress it, we don't want to address it, we lie to ourselves about it. Um, or we're exhausted because there's so much in every direction. If you heard the word uncertainty one more time, I mean, it could be a drinking game and we'd be seeing double like in the first 3 minutes of life. So yeah, I do talk about from a contextual standpoint. We're in a worry war right now. And that worry war is all the things we're feeling. And my take is like there's nothing more normal than fear. If you feel worried between your ears, the your neighbor feels it, your boss feels it, your spouse feels it, your significant other feels it. It's just whether we're choosing to talk about it, normalize it, because it's normal, right? Like one of the things that I've learned from this new experiment of Courageous, which we're 7 years old now, is that people feel very alone. They feel lonely, but they're not alone. Like I keep talking to leaders, and every single one of them, I'm sure you feel this on your show too. They all feel like the higher up in an organization that they get, that like, oh my gosh, like this burden is on me now. This pressure is on me now. They're not totally sure who they can trust. And so they share a lot with me. And I'm like, look, I get to see every vertical under the sun. And I'm just trying to create the condition for a conversation like this. So although you feel lonely, you're not alone. We're all feeling that fear. And so how do we bring it to the surface and start normalizing it? And I think the people that do that, they are the ones that are going to get through it and win. And the data suggests that 95% of us won't. 95% of us are going to freeze, are going to flight, right? And 5% of us are going to fight. So if I'm in a room with 100 people, what I usually do at a keynote is I'll make 5 people stand up. And this isn't
Mm.
coming from me. This is coming from Cambridge PhDs that are sharing. Nicholas Alp is like my brain Sherpa. He's like laymaned it down for me so I could understand it. And I'm like, look, this is what the data says. 5 of us will fight and 95% won't. So the optimist in me is like, amazing competitive advantage,
Mm.
right? If I already know that 95% of my competition doesn't want to take on fear, wow. Like in a world chaotic that's we're trying to move as fast as we can, like that is a huge advantage for those who choose courage.
Yeah. Well, you have a different way uh, of approaching fear, which I think people who hear this may not have as their established approach. Meaning, like fear normally is, like you said, it's suppress. So when you say what I'm hearing from you is when you say to fight fear, you're not saying to push it down and keep going, right? You're saying, hey, acknowledge it, normalize it, and build up the muscle to be able to keep going while still feeling the fear, to be able
Yes,
to, right, to not let it be what fuels the behavior. It's going to be with you. It's like, you're going to drive a car, it's going to be in the passenger seat. You want to kick it out of the car, right? That's what
correct,
you want to do. But you got to realize if you try to kick it out of the car is going to stall out. You're not going to move. You actually have to have it alongside with you and take it with you across whatever bridge you're trying to cross.
correct. Yeah, another way to look at it, and fear mountain, right? That's all it is. Like you've got to if you've there's something you want to do, you want to climb that mountain and you're terrified. And the higher up you get, the air gets thinner and you can see the top now. It's not as foggy or as cloudy. And the closer you get, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm getting closer. Like that's, and like in some ways, our role is like courage Sherpa. Like we can't climb the mountain for you. Like you have to do it, but we
Yeah.
can give you the tools to get up there. And usually what happens is when you people get to the top of that mountain, the first thing they do is like, wow, they look around, they're relieved, they're amazed, they're like, they did it. And then they look, and what was hiding behind that mountain was another mountain. And they're like, and now they're on to the next. And so in some ways, like that's success is that let's take the largest fear we can, let's climb that fear. And
Yeah.
you're building that muscle to take on the next one, and then the next one, and the next one. And I'm not here to exhaust anybody, right? Like but like that's the difference is there something that you can take on and run at? And like you said, don't bury it, don't suppress it. Like let's address it and normalize it. And if you run a team, right, that fear might be there's a conversation that you need to have that you haven't had and you're afraid to have it. And it's probably rooted in you don't have all the answers. Or maybe some you don't like what you hear and there's a course correction with someone on the team. And you have to have the courage to speak up. And that's kind of where it starts is like what's the hard conversation first? Or is it just a hard conversation with yourself and bringing that fear to the surface? You kind of nailed it though. Like one of the things that I have in Return on Courage, which was, sort of the framework of our whole business is it's right there in the book. It's rooted in the book is we looked at SWOT. Remember this? This is SWOT is strengths, weaknesses, opportunity, threats. It's a 70-year-old tool that was founded in at Stanford. Great tool for when it was, but like now I find it to be incredibly cloudy. It's like my strength ends up on my opportunity list and my weakness ends up on my threat list. But this is still like the go-to planning tool we seem to use when we're thinking about taking on a big meaty challenge or we're looking to grow. And so I just find it foggy. And we actually do a fears audit. And so again, I know your audience is there's different people that are listening, but for the business owner, this is almost a perfect time to think about we're mid-year here for 27. I would actually do a fears audit and it starts with what is the industry fear
Mm.
that could like disrupt the entire vertical. When Airbnb showed up, the hospitality business are like, we don't need to worry about that. I think they now know they probably should have paid more attention to the Airbnbs of the world, right? So what is the vertical fear? Are you the vertical fear? Or do you have a vertical fear? What's taking the whole industry down? Then there's perception fears. Perception fears is more of the marketing story. It's, hey, we think we're this. That's not landing with the world. They see we're that. Like, do we really know the gap between, oh, why aren't we landing with our people? We're not being as clear with our people. There's a perception. I want us to be known for this, right? But people see us as that or they don't see us at all. Then there's service fear on the customer service side. Where are we not delivering? Right? That you see where this is going, right? And then personal fears. So like this is are we in a watch your back culture versus a got your back culture? Can I speak up freely in a business? So it's doing an audit of all these different fears and bringing them to the surface, and then you deciding and prioritizing which are the few fears we need to be going after here. How do we become an industry fear? I just like the specificity of that way better than like strength, opportunity, weakness, threat.
Yeah.
I like right, and then now let's go to town and find which mountains we wanna climb here.
Yeah, I could see how that could be cloudy and confusing. I've fallen into similar exercises where I'm a little like, where do I put this? But with a fear audit, I like that from a company level and even individual level, Ryan. Like I'm imagining, right? Like
Yeah.
an individual like Silvio in the story, like he clearly has a lot of fears in regards to those difficult conversations, to give that feedback. He's trying to see behavior change. He's trying to be an advocate for change, and he's struggling because of his fears. And so what would you suggest for someone like Silvio? Like, would it be to start taking inventory of some of those fears? Was it be like, hey, let's be real about what's going on here?
Well, I'm smiling because Silvio was not you raising his hand in the room, like, "I'll do it, I'll do it." Like, Silvio is in fact, is where I would start with Silvio is the hard conversation first, which is inaction is an action, right? If you choose not to say something, that's an action. It's not inaction, right? So already I'm saying it like this to hopefully short circuit our guy and like, let's start there. And then, okay, so, and I should probably share, the definition of courageous as we define it at our company. It's always three levers. There's knowledge, there's faith, and there's action.
Mm.
And you're never going to have 100% of the knowledge you need to make a call, which is why you need faith. And when we talk about faith, we don't mean it in the religious sense. We mean it in like the conviction sense, the inner belief sense. And then Jay, how often have you known the right move and you felt it and there's no action? It's like, so if you actually remove one
Yeah.
of the levers, knowledge and faith without action is paralysis. Faith and action without knowledge is reckless. And knowledge and action without faith, if you're numb and you're going through the motions, you're working on safe. You're working on status quo. So we always start like, okay, well, what do we know about our guy? Well, why? What is he? Let's go back to values. How valuable are his values? Has he actually run the exercise? Does he know his version of optimism, creativity, courage, and excellence? And what I would challenge Silvio with first is like, let's look inward, not the company's values, your values. Get clear on who you are, how you happened. Why are we having fear in this moment? Is that a violation of a value, declared or undeclared? And so I'd start inward and be like, hey, how do I want to show up? Not just as a leader, as a human. How do I want to show up and design my life and live my day? And my sense is what's cool about my values now, it's like for it being such an emotional topic, it's defining me. I'm now very unemotional when I use them as filters for how I show up and where I show up. And with my clients, same thing with courageous. Like the amount of times I've said, like, I don't know how I cannot say this. I would be, I'm not honoring my own brand of courageous if I don't say what I'm about to say, which is sort of my like, get ready, get ready, here we
Yeah.
go. And
Brace
it doesn't mean
yourselves.
you brace
Yeah.
yourself, right, seatbelt on. It doesn't mean, and it doesn't mean you have to be a jerk about it or like
Yeah.
tone deaf, right? But you want to honor that. So I'd start there. I'd almost start with like, how valuable are your values? Have you gotten clear on how you happen? Are they distinct enough? You'll notice I didn't have integrity or trust as a value. Like to me, those are table stakes for me. They're CYA values. Like we've got bigger problems if you don't trust me or you think integrity is an issue. Like that we're like the reason I'm even on the field is because we have those.
Yeah.
Let's move forward, right? So that's where I'd start. I'd start by getting super clear on how you happened, where you are today, and sometimes your values change. Like I had in my book, which came out, now 8 or 9 years ago, playfulness was on my list, and now I'm like, well, playfulness is very self-serving. Like, I mean, it's important, but I think there's playfulness in optimism, and I think optimism for me is more about service and my choice on how I see the world and how I'm like trying to help others see the world that way as well. Tough love is a great example of optimism, right? Tough, you're a jerk, but tough love, it's coming from a good place. It's like, I feel like this is for his own good to do a little bit of work on himself. So he's got the tools. That's like, wait, I'm actually not honoring myself right now by not speaking up. And so I'm
Right.
hoping one of his values gives him the courage to go, hey, if I value togetherness or I value accountability, this is the opposite of that behavior. How can I not speak up? And you can even share, like, that's what great leaders do. We're mirrors, right? So, hey, I'm not sure if you knew this about me. I take my values very seriously. Accountability is one of my values. I feel like this is a moment where I'm trying to be accountable. I don't feel that from you. I'm not trying to make enemies here in this moment. I'm actually trying to share something that's hard for me to share.
Yeah.
And I don't want anything coming back at me on this, but you should know that that's how I feel right now. Do you feel me not being accountable on the job? And we delicately get in and we summon out that conversation to know yourself, right? Like it's hard to have that conversation if you haven't done the work first.
Yeah, because then you can really shine the light on if this is what you say about yourself and your values, are your actions aligning towards these? And you can't start
Correct.
without that foundation. It needs to be there, and it's likely that Silvio hasn't taken inventory of this yet. And here's the other thing too that I see in that story. I want to get your take on. He might just not know how to have that
Yeah.
conversation. Like I genuinely think that often leaders want to do the right thing
Yeah.
and they want to, let's say he's like, okay, I want to have courage and I want to hold people accountable, and here's the way I do it. And he does that, like, sandwich approach. Maybe he's trying to be a little too playful and it not being
Yeah.
firm enough, and he thinks that's him doing it. and then he's wondering why they're not following through. Like there
Totally.
could just be a training piece here that's missing.
Correct. Well, let's maybe it's because it's close to lunchtime that I'm thinking about food. But here's where I go. You don't take something out of the freezer and throw it right on the grill. It
Right.
needs to defrost. And then you gotta once it's thawed out, you gotta marinate. And then finally we can get the grill going and we can cook it with fire, right? And then it's delicious, right? Yeah, clearly hungry. But how is that any different than this? How is that any different than, all right, what's the defrost out moment? Um, I've definitely said, and it comes off as self-serving, and it doesn't have to be my book. It could be anyone's book, but gifting knowledge is never a bad thing. Hey, Jay, can I send you a book? Can you read? I'd love your take on this book. I know you've got a million things to do. I thought of you. Can you read Return on Courage? And you're going, what? Okay, yeah, yeah. I handwritten
Yeah.
note. Jay, left this on your desk. Thought of you. Can you take this for a whirl? I thought of you while I was reading it. It made me smile. What are you going to do with that information?
I mean, I'd be open to it. I wouldn't reject it personally. How would
Right?
Silvio handle it? I don't know, but I'm just coming from me. I would say that's yeah,
Because
absolutely.
you're like, what's behind this? To me, this is gifting knowledge is never a bad thing, but gifting knowledge with intention, it's obviously we're setting up a conversation, right?
Yeah,
Where you're creating, hey, Jay, read this book, Essentialism. I love
yeah,
this book. Or listen to it. Are you an Audible person? I gifted it to you. It's in your inbox.
yeah,
Oh my gosh, you thought about me that much that you would go send me something like that you want me to listen? Or, hey, I know you're super busy. Tell me when you feel like we can circle back on this. You want a month? 2 months? Okay, we haven't talked about the thing. We're talking about the thing on the way to the thing. We're creating the space. We're we're just defrosting, right? And then the actual act of reading, it's oh, I wonder why do you want me to read this book? Why do you
yeah,
want me to listen to this book? Obviously, there's more here. Okay, I'm picking up what you're putting down, or I'm not picking up what you're putting down. I disagree. Okay, it summons a conversation. Sometimes that's part of it's not like, hey, I'm going to bring in an expert in here to train us. Another possible solution, if you have that budget or power inside your company. But there's lots of ways that you don't need to be the leader, that you can gift knowledge and it creates the space to have the conversation you're afraid to have.
yeah. Yeah, I think that, it's someone like Silvio who I think he wants to do better. He really does. He cares.
Yeah.
And I think so many people listening agree that they always want to improve, right? That's our audience. These are people, of course, everyone listening, you want to improve, you want to be better. And the part that's hard is to get out of the pattern that you're so familiar with. It's in those heightened emotional moments, Ryan. It's like you've had so much of that experience yourself, Ryan. You have been
Yeah.
in that seat where you realize I gotta say something here that's gonna shake someone or shake the room. And someone like Sylvia hasn't had a lot of those experiences yet. So, like in that moment, what does it take for someone who maybe doesn't have the experience you have to be able to step into that? Like what is something you would advise them to do in the moment or before that meeting or before that one-on-one to be able to even step into the mindset of I'm going to be courageous here. I'm going to say the thing that's hard to say.
Yeah. So the classic me. So it's I'll use a story time with Ryan Berman, but I'll keep it quick. So somehow, some way, I'm approaching, I think, my 275th episode of my podcast. And you would think a guy that has a podcast called the Courageous Podcast, that the big takeaway the guest would have and see themselves as is courageousness. And the irony is, what I've learned is they don't see themselves as courageous. They see themselves as real. They see
Mm,
themselves as authentic. And that is the ask. When did telling the truth become an act of courage?
mm,
Because that's the root of this, is that we're biting our lips. We're so afraid of rocking the boat, or is the juice worth the squeeze at the company? because you've seen a track record of 6 or 7 decisions. You're like, well, I wouldn't have made that decision. And erosion is setting in. And my sense is we're kind of looking at it the wrong way. Like, if you feel that way, you need reps and you need at bats to continue to grow and be the leader that you want to be. And it just starts by being real and having the courage to tell the truth and be real. And probably what will happen, and this is every story ever told, tension, tension, release, tension, tension, release, tension, tension, release. It's the hero must go through this process. This is not my story structure. This is like Joseph Campbell hero's
Yeah.
journey, right?
Yeah.
So
Good stuff. Yeah.
right, and usually what happens is when you get through it, you're always like, that was hard, but I'm so glad we did it. Like we're moving forward. I'm moving forward. There's tension and it needs to be released. And it's usually the truth that gets you through it. And that's where I would stay. And by the way, the amount of times I've been in a room, I don't know if this has happened to you. And this, I'm not talking about now, I'm saying on the journey where I finally said something and the meeting was adjourned and somebody else came up to me and was like, I'm so glad you said that. That's how I've been
Yeah.
feeling. It happens all the time. And I'm not saying that's why you do it.
Yeah.
Right. But like, that's kind of what it feels like to champion the truth.
Yeah. I've definitely had people come up to me in those after those meetings where I challenged an idea or I advocated for something that wasn't being advocated for. And at times it didn't make me the most popular guy in the room.
Yeah.
You know, I could definitely remember those instances where it created a bit of a heated discussion and I had no regrets. What was that I saw of yours? Oh, I had to ask you about it. It was regret insurance.
Regret
Regret ins
insurance.
yeah,
Yeah.
tell me about regret insurance.
Yeah. I just think courage is regret insurance. Like, you talk about Silvio, like he continues to feel disappointed at the end of all these meetings because he's acquiescing to niceness and politeness. But deep down he's frustrated. Right. And we're losing a lot of time here. It's like, that feels like compounded over 20 years regret insurance, right? Sounds like, you know what? I cared way too much about this thing at that moment. And there's definite data that the older you get, the less we seem to care about the wrong things, which is great news for all of us, stage and age play. And I deeply care about the work. I know you do too, Jay. I I care less now. Like, I know I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and I've always I always try to be empathetic. I always try to step into the shoes of dude, like, helping, but I'm also at peace with, hey, like, how do I do what's been asked of me if I've been brought in? Summon that hard conversation, right? There's some change that has to happen. What are we really afraid of? What change do we want to see by when? It comes down to speed a little bit and time. And I'm definitely not the type of person that's like, go, 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 go all the time. Like, sometimes you've got to go slower to go faster later.
Yep.
But if you want to be a great teammate, you got to learn to be a great time mate. And it's having that, Sylvia, it's having that, the courage to go, something about this, I feel like I've tried to bring up in the past and I'm failing miserably at it.
Yeah.
I'm not, I want to hold myself accountable. So I'm not being as clear as I could be or should be because I am frustrated right now by the way this project is going. And if
Yeah.
I'm in your shoes, I'm clearly not giving you what you need from me. It's not landing on your ears, and I'm frustrated by that. What do you need to hear from me? Right. And to me, like, we're sort of back into frost mode, and we're mirrors. I'm creating space. I'm accountable for, I must not be landing with you. How can I make sure that we get there faster?
Yeah. And, of course, assuming these are the right people in the right positions,
Totally.
I think to get from anywhere, from point A to point B, one thing I'm taking away from our conversation, Ryan, is it requires a leader who is honest. I mean, honest, authentic, real. Like, I know the word courage could be scary to people. and oh, I don't know if I have the courage. Everybody has the capacity to be honest.
Yes,
Everybody has the capacity to just be real and say their truth and speak their truth. And that's the fastest way to get results. And
totally.
I'm curious to get your
Yeah,
take on.
can I add
Oh
on to
yeah,
that
please.
too?
Yes.
Because to me, I'm back to it's really optimism plus creativity plus courageousness plus excellence equals Ryan Berman's version of honest,
Yeah.
right? That's all it is,
Yeah.
right? And anytime I waver off those, then I'm not being true to myself.
Right.
And this isn't, by the way, oh, you're so selfish, right? And you always have to make it about you. No, but it's like, again, it's like you have a way of being the best version of yourself, the most successful version of yourself for the team and for the project. And if you're biting your lip on that version of yourself, and by the way, if you're 45 minutes in on this conversation, clearly you're somebody that's curious and wants to go for it and is trying to figure it out. Like if you're still here listening to this conversation, I think it says so much about you, the type of leader you want to be, the type of human you want to be, right? So like let's not bury that data point. You could have left at minute 7 and you're still here listening to this as you're thinking about the next mountain you want to climb. That's a huge victory. So now what? What do you do about it? Is it run the values exercise? Get to your version of what real is for you. Is it you have enough of what you need? Go have that hard conversation. But first, don't maybe throw the fastball. Let's take the food out of the freezer. What's our defrost moment? What book would you recommend? What article do you want to send? What piece of music do you want to send? Wow, you're actually thinking about me that you would do that? You would send that to me? Right, now, not in a way where it's like, "Oh, more homework. Oh my god, I'm exhausted as is." So, I think we're on our way, folks, if you're still here and listening to this chat.
Yeah. And what I want to ask you about is a question that you would pose to someone like Silvio and what he's going through. And often I ask my guests to think about, okay, if you were to meet this person, rather than what advice would you give him, Ryan, what question would you ask him? Like if you were to hear his story and you want to ask him a question or two to really provoke him and make him think differently, what would you ask him?
I mean, very simply, I would just ask Silvio, "Why aren't you doing the thing you know you should be doing?"
Yeah.
I'm like, but I probably wouldn't even say it like that. I'd probably even slow roll that a little bit where I'm like, "Silvio, so I'm just curious, why aren't you doing the thing you know you should be doing?"
Yeah.
And then I'd have to hold space and give him time to wrap his brain around that and be like, "Okay, hold on, why am I not?" Because like, I feel like you know what you should be doing, but you're not doing it, and there's probably a few reasons why. Why do you think it is? What is it that
Yeah.
you wanna do? So, I mean, it hits both, right? Like, it hits what is it that you wanna do, and then what's in the way of actually doing it? And it
Yeah.
forces him to bring it to the surface and summon it out, like, "Okay, are you scared to ask that question? What are you worried about the response? Is this a you thing or a them thing?" So it summons the next question and the next, okay, that doesn't seem as scary anymore, right? So unless it does, right? So it depends on, it's a little bit of a choose your own adventure from there.
Yeah. But it's a powerful question. And I think it's a question we could always ask ourselves whenever we're feeling held back is what's holding us back? Why are you afraid to do this? And Ryan, I feel like I could talk to you for hours, man. And so I know we're coming up on our time. And for all of our listeners, check out the great work Ryan's doing. Fantastic writing, by the way, on the blog portion of your website. I already told you before we
Thanks.
started recording how much I loved your website. It's beautifully done. It's ryanberman.com. And from there, everyone can learn more about you, the great work you're doing, your keynotes, your workshops. I know you're quite active on social as well. Ryan, thank you, my friend, for
Yeah,
carving
man.
out time, sharing your wisdom. This was incredible.
We got to find a way to get in the same city and break bread. Now that I've talked so much about food, we got to find a way to get in the same city and eat together. Because I feel the same way about you, Jay. I love how curious you are, and it's like, and you've made your courageous leaps too. I mean, we're the same, man. Keep it going.
What I really appreciate about Ryan is his directness. and he cuts through the noise. He makes it so clear what it takes to lean into being a courageous leader. And I'm going to do my best to synthesize it down into 3 insights, 3 actionable takeaways. The first insight: inaction is still an action. Choosing not to say something, that's a decision. You're not being neutral. And every time you bite your lip, you're making a choice. And those choices will compound over time. I really loved the perspective of people who are very courageous don't see themselves as courageous. They just see themselves as real, as being honest. Second insight: courage consists of 3 levers: knowledge, faith, and action. I'm sure you want to gather some information, but you can't expect to have 100% of it. That's why faith is a big part of the equation. And you can't wait until you feel ready. You need to take action, which will then build up the momentum. Third insight: how valuable are your values? Only 1% of people can immediately identify their core values. And when you do identify them, don't use the common words other people use. It needs to be uniquely yours. It needs to feel right for you. And then you can filter all your decisions through those values. Actionable takeaways, first of 3: run a fears audit. So often we think of SWOT analysis, and teams may require looking at what's really creating fear. And he mentioned 4 categories: industry, perception, service, and personal fears. Bringing those fears to light helps you to be able to work through them. Naming them takes away from the vagueness, and then you can create a plan of action. Second actionable takeaway: defrost before you cook. If you do need to address something, maybe you don't go directly at it. Maybe you warm it up a little bit. You could send an article or a book or share an insight to help warm up the conversation before directly addressing it. And the third actionable takeaway: get clear on your values. I know I already talked about it in the insights, but I wanted it to be an actionable takeaway because it was such a powerful part of the conversation. Be sure that you are clear, and then you start to run your decisions through the filter of your values. You could even share those values with your team. Understand what their values are as well. You can do this on an individual level. And therefore, you're not taking action or reacting just out of emotion. You're considering the right decision according to your values. Join us on Friday's episode. We're going to do a deep dive into one of the hindrances to courage, and that's self-doubt. Have you ever felt like you shrink in big moments? You want to say something, but you hold yourself back. You're fearful of the judgments of others. Maybe your idea isn't good enough. Maybe you're just unsure of yourself. Well, on Friday, I'm going to help you through this. We'll dive into a way to shift your mindset, address self-doubt, so that you can be more confident, composed, and more sure of yourself. So until next time, thank you so much for listening. I am rooting for you.